Welcome to week 3 of the Judgeless movement. This week we are going to focus on judging the other less. How this is a little bit different to last week, because really anything outside of ourselves is the other, can be considered the other, is that it's easier for us to, we have to start with ourselves. I'm going to reinforce that message once again. We can only give what we have. So we start with ourselves, we make the space that we live in as healthy as we can, as loving and kind as we can, and as thriving as we can, and then we extend that out. And it's just easier for us to extend that out to people that we love, to people that we know well, than it is to start with extending it out to anybody. But really the other, so what I mean by the other is people that we may not understand, that we may feel very different to, that may have very different beliefs to us, lifestyles, make choices that we can't imagine ever making. And it's easier to judge them because we don't have inside info. With our family and friends, we often have inside info that makes us a little bit more compassionate and a little bit kinder than with people, groups of people that we may really only know through media or, by having a very outside perspective of their lives. So this week, let's extend out the things that we have learnt. Again, I'll just reinforce that the kind of judgment that I'm speaking about is the harsh, the heavy, the critical. Not the judgments that we do need to make in order to group things into what I want more of, what I like, what I love, traits that I like, things that I'm drawn to, what I respect, what I'm passionate about. Obviously, they also require us to judge in a sense. The kind of judgment I'm talking about is the judgment that narrows, constricts, makes things smaller, doesn't allow for movement, doesn't allow for compassion. So where there's that kind of judgment, there is no awareness. And where there's no awareness, there's no compassion, there's no forgiveness, there's no insight. So let's extend our knowledge that kind of compassion is heavy. It weighs down. So again, let's go back to, there's an energetic pot that connects us all. We all have access to the same energy. And we are being more responsible and more conscious about what we put into that energetic pot. We start with ourselves. We've extended out to our loved ones, our family and our friends, by being conscious and mindful of what we put into the pot that exists between us and them, our part of that. This week, let's extend that to the other. So let's extend that to any other person on the planet. Let's start to be mindful of what we put into that whole energetic pot. What am I adding to it? Am I adding fear? Am I adding criticism? Am I adding harshness? It's a very relevant time. There's a lot of harshness. There's a lot of criticism around. There's a lot of judgment that's very quickly made on social media, through the media in general. The media is certainly geared up for drama, for division, and we can really buy into that. We can get a sense of a whole. We can think we know a whole group by one person. We can think we know one person by a representation of them from someone else. So let's extend our understanding this week to what we put into the collective pot by how we are, judging a group, anybody that we encounter. So anything outside of ourselves this week, Where ego comes into it this week is that ego is very set up to make us feel separate. So love would say, there's only one of us here, we are all connected, and love would have you look for the similarities between us. Ego will say, we're all different, you would never act like that, they're not like you, you have nothing in common with people like that. So that's what I'm asking you to do this week. We're all a little bit, what ego does is, do you remember in newspapers and magazines, you might have done them when you were a kid, you might still do them now, is that spot the difference game. So you would have two cartoons next to each other, and what you were meant to do is spot the differences. Ego is set up to spot the differences, and that is the thing that then makes us feel superior, or that brings that judgment in. You'll sit down with a group of people, or you might watch something on TV, or you might walk down the street, see a different culture, a different religion, a different socioeconomic group, anything. It can be with the other parents that you are at school with, waiting for your kids to come out. It can be with other kids that you're in a classroom with, other people that you work with. Ego is geared up to do that kind of game in your head, spot the differences. And each time you spot a difference, we've kind of been programmed by ego to then think our side of that difference is correct. What if there is a difference between you and I, my side is correct and your side isn't? That my side is superior, my side is more insightful, my side is more wise, it's smarter, it's kinder, it's whatever. This week, homework and focus for the week is spot the similarities. So really turn that game around and be geared up to spot the similarities. So I want you to look for the humanness in the other. The best way to do that is to group everything into two categories, either love or fear. If you see somebody acting angrily, if you see somebody speaking angrily, I want you to recognize that's fear. They're frightened. And then I want you to think about, when have I been frightened? Would I be frightened in that situation? How would I act in that situation? You might not choose the same, but how would we know? Unless we've been in that situation, how would we know? This is where we make judgments. We make judgments because we don't understand where somebody's behaviour is coming from. And they're often acting from fear, and when we act from fear, any kind of crazy can happen. A lot of things can happen that can be out of character. So spend the week being compassionate with yourself, being compassionate with your loved ones, and extending that to people that you don't know, other, outside, people that you mightn't have always felt a connection with. Look for the connection. Look for the similarity. Obviously, there's the humanness. Then look for the, they're also a parent, or they're also a partner, or they're also somebody that's frightened of maybe losing their job, or they're also somebody that's struggling with, particularly people that have a lot of fear, which is all of us at some point in time. But here's the difference between, say, two possibilities of what you can do with that. You can go and recognize that everybody feels that, and sometimes they do different things to hide that or to move through that. Or you can feel really isolated with your fear, which is what ego will do. Nobody feels like you, you're alone, but also then plays with the other in that sense of, you would never do that, you would never act like that, you would never treat your partner like that or speak to people like that. But just recognizing they're also fearful, and it's coming out in that way for them. So say, for example, you're going to a situation where there's a lot of new people that you haven't met before, and you might be quite shy. you're most likely going to go to that environment thinking that everybody else is fine, they're probably looking forward to it, they're going to cope great, and I'll be anxious, I'll be nervous. Look for the similarities. Look for the person that might be speaking a lot. That often comes from feeling a little bit anxious socially, or it comes from just being someone like me who just talks a lot. But, look for the person that's loud. They're often in the corner kind of making up, compensating for their shyness. For, loud people often don't feel heard. Angry people don't feel heard. Start to look for what's underneath that, the humanness there. Bring compassion to that rather than just the judgment. Another thing I want to reinforce, which really is key all the way through. Here's how judgment can work for us. Here's how observation can work for us. It's okay for you to sit with someone and have a conversation about somebody else's behaviour for the purpose of understanding and insight. So if you sit together with a friend and you're talking about a third friend and you're saying, did you hear that she has chosen to da-da-da, and then you're both talking about why do you think she did that? That's okay. That's how we get our insight, by looking at other people, by talking about them, by observing, by sharing it with other people. But focus on what's my intention here. Am I building them up? Am I building myself up with my words here? Or is my intention actually to beat them up? So observation is great. And then particularly if we can bring in compassion, look for the humanness in it. Maybe she's doing that because she's frightened. Maybe she's doing that because she's had some advice from someone else. Just look for the why might you act that way, and start to group things into where people are acting from fear. Be kind with yourself too when you're acting from fear. So that's our focus this week. Look for the similarities amongst us all. It doesn't matter what country we live in. It doesn't matter what religion we are. It doesn't matter what gender we are. Look for the similarities. We all want to belong. We all want to feel loved. We all want respect. When we cannot give ourselves that, we're going to have trouble giving someone else that. So maybe look for that in people too. When someone's being disrespectful to you, if you feel they're being disrespectful, this week start to bring that compassion and level of understanding in of most likely they're frightened, they're not feeling heard, and most likely they're not able to treat me with respect because they're not able to treat themselves with respect. Please don't ever misunderstand when I say compassion and understanding as not meaning act on that in your best interests. Remove yourself from a situation that is disrespectful. Speak up for yourself. Move on from people. All of that is fine. Love people from afar if that is what you need to do. It's probably actually another really good topic to do a video on at some point in time. How to honour and respect yourself but act in your best interests. But for this week, look for the similarities. So as you're walking down the street, different religions, different groups, they're human. They want the best for their children just as I do. They want to be in a safe environment just as I do. Look for if people are acting in ways that you feel are not how you might act, what could be driving that? Are they fearful? Are they frightened? Could be a completely misguided reaction to feeling that in a sense that might give them more power. So thank you for all your feedback to those of you who filled in the survey that I sent out in the email. Thank you very much to those of you that did respond with personal things. I don't know who they're coming from. They are anonymous. So if you've said, remember the things we worked on in our sessions, I don't know who that's coming from. But thank you very much to all of you who fed back. Please do let me know each week what resonates with you from the videos, what you want more of. Next week will be Judge Humanity Less, where we will kind of bring each thing in but do an overall perspective. And then in the last week of May, what I will do is take all of your feedback, any questions that you had, anything that you wanted to know more about, and we'll cover that. Thank you for being here. I'm really glad that you are. I hope that I'm sure that as you are being conscious about judging less, people are giving you a lot of opportunity to judge less. That's how it works, the law of attraction. What you focus on, you get plenty of opportunity to get good at. So don't be disheartened by that, and please don't be disheartened if you are realizing how much you do judge, because that's a great awareness, and from there you can choose differently. Take care and have a good week.